Once upon a colonial time, from Breukelen to Beverwyck, the Dutch West India Company just couldn't get enough settlers to live along our Hudson River. Everyone seemed happy living in Holland. Well, the distinguished members of that august board pulled on their chin whiskers and wondered, how can we get people to settle the way they are in New England or even down in Florida? No one knew what to do. At length, one of the good wives appeared. Gentlemen, forgive me for intruding upon your meeting, but I believe I have a solution. Well, this is outrageous, you coming in, but, what's your solution? You need Sinterklaas. Ha! Listen to this woman, insisting we send a spirit to help us better colonize the New Netherlands. Oh, I don't mean the actual spirit. I mean something that would embody the spirit of Sinterklaas. What do you mean? You need a ship protected by the one who protects those who sails across the ocean. And that, of course, is Sint Herr Nikolaus. What do you mean? I mean this. You must make people feel safe by creating a wooden figurehead of Sinterklaas. Put it on the prow of the ship, and gladly will people come to your new world to settle. Well, the gentlemen of the Dutch West India Company pulled on their chin whiskers and said, "Oh, that's a marvelous idea. I agree. Oh, I'm glad we thought of it." And the woman just threw up her hands in exasperation, and off she went. And the gentlemen of the board went out and hired the finest wood carver in all of the New Netherlands, and he created an 8-foot-tall wooden statue of the dour old bishop. He wore a tall mitre upon his head, had a flowing red and white beard, and a long robe from almost his nose down to his toes. In one hand he held a crook in his hand, and in his mouth, of course, he had a long-stemmed pipe. This was the very same spirit the children venerated, for he brought them toys and oranges on his eve, and that was December the 5th, before his day, December the 6th. He also brought with him Pels Peter and the Grumpuses, who would, punish the naughty children, maybe with a switch across their backs and sides, or by stuffing them into a bag and sending them off to the desolate place of Spain. Well, here was Sinterklaas on the prow of the ship, and it worked, as the woman predicted, charming people into setting out from the old Netherlands to come here to the New Netherlands. Well, old Sinterklaas seemed to stare down the storms and the sea monsters. For when the folk arrived, they begged, "Skipper, skipper, may we keep our Sinterklaas here in the New World? We'll feel much safer." Well, the crusty old skipper said, "I don't care about it. Go ahead." Kruk, and he broke off the wooden figurehead from his ship, and they planted it along a little parade grounds, now called the Bowling Green, in New York City, on the island of Manhattan, where that great monstrous brass bull now stands. But back in these days stood the wooden figure of Sint Herr Klaus. Well, people kind of adored the old saint and thought that he should enjoy some of the sweetness of life. And when they tumbled out of the many taverns in New Amsterdam, they sometimes would fill his pipe with a little tobacco, and wags even lit it, making it appear as though old Sinterklaas was enjoying a good smoke, wooden figure that he was. Now once, happening upon this smoking figure, came Olaf van Cortlandt, who lived in the wilds of Manhattan, up along what is now Kip's Bay, and he worried and wondered, what will happen to this Manhattan? And once he asked old Sinterklaas, what will happen? And he breathed in some of the smoke, and maybe it was the smoke, maybe it was the good New World beer, but whatever it was, ka-thunk, he fell down. And folk folk ran round, they revived him, and there were some children looking on, concerned, and when Olaf came to his senses, not only was he showing some sensibility, but seemed to be in a sensation. "I have seen a vision," he proclaimed, and off he ran. The children then thought, "A vision? A vision? 'Twas of Sinterklaas coming to the New World." Now, on December the 5th that year, the children round and about in New Amsterdam begged, "Mother, Father, if we put out our wooden shoes on the stoop, don't you think Sinterklaas will come and fill them as he does back in the old world?" "Oh, no, no, children. It's much too far for him to travel on his white horse across the vast ocean. No, no, put not your wooden shoes out on the stoop." But you know how children are. They held hope, and they set out their wooden shoes on the stoop, and then snuggled up into their beds. And oh, a kind of vision of sugar-plum fairies came. For the next morning of December the 6th, when they climbed down, and opened the top of their double Dutch door, what to their wondering eyes did appear but their wooden shoes bursting with treasures. "Why, look," they cried, there's marbles and jacks and wooden dollies and Jacob's ladders, and proof positive they had been visited by Sinterklaas. They found an exotic fruit, unknown in these parts and these days of which I speak. They found an orange. Well, they clutched these treasures and ran up and down the broad way and Water Street and Pearl Street of old New Amsterdam, proclaiming, "Sinterklaas came, Sinterklaas came." Now, of course, in these days of which I speak, the colony of the New Netherlands was a broad-minded place and invited all manner of people. There were English and Dutch, and there were even Baptists and Catholics and Jews living in old New Amsterdam and beyond. And all these folk wondered, "What do you kids have?" Well, at first the Dutch kids said, but then eventually they let it be known that they had been visited and given gifts by Sinterklaas. Well, of course, this prompted other children, especially the English, to go back to their homes and beg, "Mom, Dad, may we have a visit to get gifts from, what did the Dutch children say was its name? Something like, Santa Claus. Yes, may we have a visit from Santa Claus and get gifts?" Well, at first, the English colonists told their children, "No, we don't celebrate Christmas. After all, we're English." Now, indeed, this is true. The Pilgrims reprimanded the sailors on board the Mayflower for celebrating Christmas with beer and caroling, and for years and years after that, in Massachusetts Bay Colony, why, there was a fine of 5 shillings for celebrating Christmas. Eventually, it took the likes of, Charles Dickens to completely turn things around, but that's another story. Well, eventually, those Dutch children who first had the faith to put out their wooden shoes began to spread word, and up and down along Hudson's River, children of all kind began to not only hope for Sinterklaas, but really hope for, as they would say, a visit from Santa Claus. Now, Olaf, in his vision, came to realize that, well, Manhattan would become a thriving place, an industrious place with many, many people. And he, found his vision to be right. In the early 1800s, it came to pass that Sinterklaas needed more than just his white horse to deliver toys to girls and boys. Thus, he received as we would call it, a makeover from 3 wise men. They were Washington Irving, Clement C. Moore, and James Kirkpatrick. They took that dour old bishop and shortened his garb and gave him a white trimmed red coat and pantaloons. They traded his bishop's mitre in for a flopping Dutch sugarloaf hat, and they put a smile on his face and created a beautiful poem, and rather than traveling around on a white horse, he'd have a proper sleigh, and Washington Irving had imported some flying reindeer from his adventures in Lapland, and they gave them Dutch-German names, and, well, that provided a new way for Santa Claus to travel throughout not just the 13 new states, but far and beyond that. And, a little illustration from Thomas Nast, and, well, that dour old bishop became our right jolly old elf. But it all began with some spirited children living in the New Netherlands who spread word that a good, kindly, gift-giving spirit also would visit around and about here. It just needed a little faith. And I hope this tale's given you some too. Thanks for listening. Jonathan Kruk for Listen with the Lights On.
This story just makes me smile from ear to
This was a
ear.
great story.
I
Thanks
love
much.
this story, and it's